Admiral James Stockdale spent 7 years as a prisoner of war in the Hanoi Hilton, the most brutal detention camp in Vietnam. When he was finally released and asked who didn't make it out, his answer had nothing to do with physical toughness. He said the optimist died first. The prisoners who said, "We'll be out by Christmas," Christmas would come and go. "We'll be out by Easter," Easter would come and go. Each failed expectation broke something inside them, and eventually they gave up entirely. The men who survived were the ones who accepted the full weight of their situation without forcing a timeline onto it. They didn't pretend things were fine, and they didn't set deadlines for God. They held two things at once: faith that the story would eventually make sense, and total surrender to the fact that they didn't get to decide when. That's not a war story. That's your life. You're doing the same thing Stockdale watched those men do, setting invisible deadlines. By 30, I should have this. By this year, this relationship should feel like that. By now, the work should be paying off. And every time the date passes and the thing hasn't arrived, something inside you doesn't just feel disappointed, it fractures. Because you weren't just hoping, you were demanding. You handed God a schedule and called it faith. And when reality didn't match the schedule, you didn't question the schedule. You questioned God. There is something in you, in all of us, that believes effort should produce results on a predictable timeline. Plant the seed Monday, see the sprout by Friday. And when Friday comes and the soil is still dark, the instinct isn't to trust the ground. The instinct is to dig, to interfere, to force your hands into something that was already working beneath the surface and rip it apart looking for evidence that your effort mattered. Watts called this the backwards law, the idea that the harder you chase something, the faster it moves away from you. Not because the universe is cruel, but because the chasing itself is a form of resistance. You are pushing against the current of something that was already moving toward you, and the push is the only thing keeping it out of reach. Think about the last thing you forced. Really think about it. The relationship you over-pursued, the opportunity you white-knuckled into existence, the version of yourself you performed until the performance became the full-time job. It's in your life now, maybe. But notice what it cost to keep it there. Notice how it never quite settles, how it requires constant monitoring, constant maintenance, constant proof that it was worth the effort. That's the signature of a forced thing. It arrives under duress and it stays under duress. The moment you stop gripping, it starts sliding. And instead of reading that slide as information, as the clearest possible signal that this was never meant to be held this way, you grip harder. You call the gripping dedication. You call it discipline. You call it not giving up. But the thing you're not giving up on was never yours to hold in the first place. Surrender doesn't mean you stop caring. It means you stop confusing your timeline with God's. There's a difference between walking a path and demanding the path arrive at a destination by a date you chose. One is movement. The other is warfare. Warfare against the nature of how things actually unfold, which is almost never on the schedule you wrote in your head at 2 in the morning, when the anxiety was loud enough to feel like planning. There's a paradox here that most people refuse to sit with, and Watts saw it clearer than anyone. The effort to improve your situation is often the thing sustaining the situation. The desperate need to fix the loneliness is the energy that makes you unfixable to be around. The frantic push to become successful broadcasts the exact frequency that repels what you're reaching for. The fight to make someone love you is the thing they can feel underneath every word you say, and it's the reason they keep one foot toward the door. You can sense when someone is forcing something on you, the conversation that's going somewhere, the generosity with an invoice attached, the kindness that's actually negotiation. You can sense it because force has a frequency, and every human being is tuned to detect it. So if you can feel it in others, what makes you think others can't feel it in you? The suffering isn't in the waiting. The suffering is in the resistance to the waiting. A person sitting in uncertainty without fighting it is just sitting. A person sitting in uncertainty while running mental simulations of every possible outcome, while rehearsing what they'll do when the answer arrives, while tightening every muscle against the possibility that the answer might be no. That person is in agony. Same chair, same uncertainty, completely different experience. The uncertainty didn't produce the suffering. The refusal to let the uncertainty exist without attacking it, that's where every ounce of pain lives. And here's what makes this hard to hear. The things that were taken from you, the door that closed, the plan that collapsed, the person who left, those might not have been losses. They might have been the guidance. God doesn't always guide through addition. Sometimes the guidance is removal. Sometimes the most precise act of direction is the thing you prayed for being pulled out of your hands so that your hands are finally empty enough to receive what was actually coming. But you'll never see what's coming if you're still turned around, facing the thing that left, trying to drag it back. Watts described water as the most powerful element on earth because it never forces anything. It doesn't push through rock. It moves around it, finds the gap, takes the path that already exists, and over time, not on a schedule, not by a deadline, the water reshapes the rock entirely, not through force, through persistence without resistance, through showing up and flowing in the direction that's open instead of hammering at the direction that's closed. You know the direction that's open. Somewhere beneath the strategy and the anxiety and the gripping, you already know. You've always known. The body knows before the mind admits it, which relationships are flowing and which ones you're propping up, which work feels like expression and which feels like performance, which parts of your life breathe on their own and which ones you have to manually ventilate every single day. The information has been there for months, maybe years. The reason you haven't acted on it isn't that you don't know. It's that knowing would mean releasing your grip, and the grip has become so familiar, it feels like the only thing keeping you from falling. But you're not falling. You were never falling. The ground was always there, 6 inches below the feet you've been dangling in midair, refusing to let go, because someone once told you the drop would kill you. Stockdale's men didn't survive because they were tougher. They survived because they stopped setting deadlines for something that was never operating on their schedule. The moment they released the timeline released them. The suffering didn't end because the war ended. The suffering ended the moment they stopped fighting something bigger than themselves and let it carry them instead. Whatever you're gripping right now, the plan, the person, the outcome you decided was the only acceptable version of your future, open your hands. Not because it doesn't matter, because the tighter you hold it, the less room there is for anything to land.